Welcome to the Mr. Universe Meets podcast. My Mansformation programme is growing every year and helping more and more busy men to take control of their fitness, their physique and their energy levels so they can show up each day as the best version of themselves. On this podcast, we're going to speak to peak performers who have reached the very top of their field. We're going to look at their mindset, habits and routines that have made them elite, and I want you to take advantage of the lessons they teach so you can go and achieve your own goals faster. I would love it if you could like, share and subscribe and enjoy the podcast. Mr. Universe meets Stevie Ward. Thanks so much for coming down, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, mate. Finally got you.
I know, mate. Finally got here. So, look, obviously, we go into the whole backstory, and we'll touch on your mindsets and habits and routines of being part of such an elite group of players at that time. But obviously, really sad week for the Leeds Rhinos. Everybody connected. Obviously, Rugby League and everybody in general as well, because I think that this story of obviously Rob Burrows passing, it kind of transcended sport and it went really mainstream, didn't it? And it was a really sad story.
Yeah, man, it's devastated me, to be honest. It's not as we were saying before, like fatigue is something I struggle with, but obviously doing talks and then getting the news with Rob and everything rolling into one, it knocked me. And I remember it knocking me, mate, for 6 when he got the diagnosis as well. And just, you know, everyone looks at Rob Burrow and Rob will speak individually for some reason to every different person that's crossed paths with him, watched him on TV, trained with him. Is that sort of person? And I think Rob speaks to the part of us which sort of thinks things are impossible or denies parts of ourselves that we can make it, or we can do what we need to do, or stand up for ourselves, or do something in a world which we could never imagine. You know, I think that's what Rob sort of speaks to, I think, for loads of people, and it's transcended sport, mate. It's all different types of sport, and man, and his family as well. You know, everyone's taken to him all, and it's just love, innit, you know.
Absolutely, that's the thing. I mean, I could never bring myself to watch the documentaries because the thought of having 3 young lasses there, you know, and knowing that you're not going to get to see him grow up and that lot, it would break my heart, you know. So I could never bring myself to actually watch it. Obviously, you see bits and pieces and you know the news and social media and stuff like that, and obviously, you know, his friendship with Kev and everything that he's done, but like you say, he embodied that spirit of rugby league, that never give up and never say die, and right till the end, you know. Yeah, and that was it, mate. He didn't turn away from life. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that we can all take, and been hard. It's been hard to sort of see it happen, and obviously there's the funeral still to come and everything like that, and there's a game actually 21st of June next week, a week today. It was going to be the motor neuron disease game anyway. It just turns out obviously Rob's passed, and a lot of ex-teammates going to be getting together for that, so it's going to be sad, but you know, strength through adversity type of affair, I think, you know. Yeah, and he's obviously brought such awareness to the disease and between him and what's Infield done, and everybody really connected, you know, with it. They've really brought it to the forefront and done some great things in raising some big money for that charity as well.
Oh, mate, the effect is going to be, well, no one's going to, it's unfathomable, the effect that it'll have. Yeah. And the dent that they've made in the efforts for it. So, it's unbelievable.
Good stuff. All right, mate. Well, we'll crack on with the questions that we had for you. Obviously, like I said, first of all, thanks so much for coming down and joining us on this. Following you on LinkedIn and seeing you on there, you're looking busy speaking, and you look very busy with the speaking engagements and the motivational speaking and stuff like that, and obviously sharing your story. Is that something that you had? Obviously, you didn't know that you were going to have the injuries and stuff like that, but is that sort of speaking on leadership and motivational speaking something you always wanted to do post rugby?
I think it just felt natural, mate. I think 22 years old was the first talk I did. And I just wrote some bullet points and what I felt about the bullet points and
maybe some stories that they take me to. And I remember the first talk I did was doing that and doing it at Leeds Town Hall and going in, this young, naive lad going in to speak to a room of people. I didn't know what the size of the room was, but I walked in and there was, there must have been about 300 people. I'm just stood on this stage of a lecture and I'm thinking, oh, all right, well, I'm here. But I went into it, mate, and I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. Not just because I get to speak about myself for 40 minutes, but I think because I got to go back and feel the lessons that I've learned and remind myself of them all the time, and also carve a way forward for where I was going, for what I felt strongly about in the game and rugby league, for mental health, for resilience, for leadership, and all these things have started to sort of converge and culminate into the same thing for me as over the last few years, with what has been, I guess, the brain injury, retiring from playing rugby league for the Rhinos and captain, and the passion for speaking in a short way that was born at around 22, and when I started looking into mental health and launching mentality, and and if anything, the injury and all that sort of stuff has just heightened what I speak about and made me just go after it even more,
Yeah, fantastic. We'll certainly come back round to the injury and stuff like that. But if we go back to the start and obviously start with rugby, obviously where it all started. Why did you fall in love with rugby league? Why did you choose that sport?
Well, literally, it was love, mate. It was the first love, longest relationship I've ever had apart from my mum and dad and sister and grandparents. I think there's a part of me that what was I thinking about? I'd say like I'm Leeds through and through, right? But I don't think it's because of the badge, or I don't think it's because of the place or even the people, but I'd say it's because I've been able to live myself fully through Leeds, if that makes sense, through the team and through what I've ended up going. And as a young lad, mate, whether I was streaming down to the bottom of my street onto a bike ramp that my dad had made in his garage for me to go over off the top of it and land on the grass on this BMX, whether I'm dropping half pipes and 6-footers as a lad as on the skateboard, or if I'm running towards a defensive line in rugby league and having this physical combat and this conflict and the feeling that you might get sat on your ass or the feeling that you might pour through to the other side of the line. For me, to then feel like I got through to the other side and then hear my mum from the touchline, go on, Stevie, to hear that. And then have this freedom and this like exhilaration and this absolute authenticity. That's, well, it just was me in my best totality at the time, and 6-7 years old to sort of be brushing up against experiences like that. It was like, it was everything. And it just came out of me, So
who was your amateur club? Who did you start with?
Well, I don't even know if you'll remember him. First it was Saga Saints. They've gone, folded. Then there was Cherwell Chiefs. I played a bit for Morley Rugby Union. A lot of people know them. I played for them for a few years, but there's Cherwell Chiefs who I played for, and they folded as well. And then, obviously went onto the right. I played for Hunslet Warriors for a year, and then went on to play for the Rhinos professional at 16. So yeah, those moments, mate, they typify why I fell in love with rugby league. And if ever there's a sport where you fully maximise yourself and give everything, I was that type of person. I was all in, and if I had to do something, I'd be fully in, you know, and that's why rugby league was. I can remember I was pretty good at football. Obviously played rugby union, and I was considering, do I play football or do I play rugby league? And it was never really a decision because I can remember feeling like this rugby league thing is it requires all of me. Do you know what I mean?
play football and the ball goes away from you, and but rugby league's like, no, you're always on, and
you're just naturally gravitated to that style of game.
It was just an obvious decision, really.
And obviously, as you were progressing through those junior clubs, people started to compare you to Sinfield and stuff like this. Obviously, a comparison there. Were you aware of that at a time as growing up, and was there much pressure that came with that?
Yeah, I was aware. Yeah, I mean. And it happened more and more and more the older I got as well. And it was, on one part, I think it was good for the ego, because it's like, oh, people think I'm good at it, people think I'm going to be as good as this guy who's a world beater and all that. And I think the other part of it was, I imagine it, well, I know it got a bit confusing, because I'm like, well, what do I need to do here to be accepted, to be safe, to feel like I can offer my full self? Do I need to sort of be more like Kev? Do I need to play the game a bit more like him? And so I guess it was pressure, but also pretty good as well at the same time as a young lad.
It must go a couple of ways, because when you compare to someone like that, do you potentially get complacent and think, I'm the bollocks, I'm going to make this regardless, people are already comparing me to Sinfield? Or does it drive you on to really up your game so that you do reach them levels?
Yeah, in one way. I mean, I don't think it was, for me, complacency. I remember complacency was never a thing for me. Even when that happened, and it was like that all-in thing. It's like, if I'm not giving all of this, if I'm not putting all myself into this thing and coming off the game and feeling like I've give everything, then I'd feel this deep shame really coming off. If I'd missed a tackle, I remember making a contract to myself thinking, I'm never going to miss a tackle like that, because it made me feel that bad. So for me to make it in rugby, I was always guarding against complacency. If anything, I was too obsessed with it. Do you know what I mean? I was too driven and too focused in a way.
Funny you say obsessed there, though. Don't you feel that to become the best at anything, you've got to become obsessed with it?
I think you have to have this drive. I think you have this drive. You have this sort of need, this necessity, this will to. I had this will to smash into anything. I had this will to break through any line. I had this will to carry on, even though I was hurt. But also, I think, if you don't add acceptance to that, if you don't add vulnerability to that, then that obsession goes into over control, it goes into fear, it goes into tearing your life apart, tearing other people's lives apart, and it goes into I guess worry as well, because the buck has to stop somewhere, So yeah, that drive that I had, I think, I'd like to think, or I sort of looking back, I always looked around in the team and I was like, why didn't I was driven? Do you know what I mean? I used to look around like, why? I'm ready to go to war here. I used to think, like, I'm ready to, like, fully giving myself to this thing.
This was in the junior. So when you got into that first team, though, because obviously when you broke into that first team, that first team had already been on fire for a number of years already. So, there must have been, sharing that dressing room with these legends and, the standards now being super high.
Yeah.
That'll obviously be made you feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, it was, I remember first training session, 16 years old, going in and training. There was, Sinfield, Peacock, Burrow, Maguire, James Jones Buchanan, Keith Senior at that time. I'm like going in for a warm up. I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? Flipping heck! I'm the skinny child, mate. I was a skinny child at the time, and yeah, you meet this sort of there's this train that's moving of standards and just like all out. Another way to put it, it was really sort of like high standards in terms of training and performing, but also like there was this element of
character to it as well, you know, this element of diversity, you know, in the team. You know, you'd have Kevin Sinfield to Ryan Bailey, you'd have, you know, Jamie Peacock to Kylie Lulu. You know, everyone sort of had represented a different version. And I think that was a big thing coming into it, realising that everyone had a voice in a way and everyone had their own style. You know, you think about like Joel Moon, who played for such a long time for us, who I always say is one of the best players I've ever seen or played with, who really sort of represented, you know, that dynamism and uniqueness that I think come from that team. And I think the two things that's required really for performance to be the best is full intensity, but then also full authenticity. That's what I believe. You know, and I watch videos of all sorts of stuff on LinkedIn, mate. You'll see there's a lot of stuff that knocks about there, but you know, there's some stuff. You know, there was Wayne Rooney talking about making his debut for England, and he's coming up against France, and there's people. I think it was the French players, Lilian Thuram, centre back, saying that he won't be ready for it, he's too young, and all this sort of stuff. And you know, Rooney comes into the game and he's just like, I'm going to smash this fella. I'm going to smash him. And he's nutmegging Zidane. He's smashing Lilian Thuram in the chops. The Thuram's going down, diving, and all the rest of it. And this bloke's just got into this team and he's gone, fucking, yeah, it's England. He's gone, yeah, I'm playing against France, this is Zidane, but I'm fucking me here. Do you know what I mean? And there's got to be that full authenticity to, you know, there's got to be respect for people. There's also a bit of disrespect as well. There's got to be a disrespect to say, yeah, it's all good, we're in the Euros and all the rest of it, but it don't mean anything. Because all I can do is me. Do all this intensity, I can add all these standards, I can have this maximum effort, but also I just got to accept what's going to happen here. Like I've always done. Being back on the field, running towards the defensive line and being led by something that seems to be leading me, this intuition, you know.
Is that how you always felt going into that? You always felt that you could just give what you've got?
On my good days, yeah. On my good days. On my worst days, I was like, fucking, what do I need to do here? You know, I remember being in a game, one of the biggest games as a young lad, 18 years old. It was like third or fourth game, and I'm stood around, and I think there's 2 or 3 games, and, you know, I'd killed it. I was putting the ball through, grubbing the ball through, chipping over the top, and, you know, having this game where I feel like I'm just playing, this young child is playing, this instinctive, creative, sensitive kid that's always played with full maximum effort was playing. And then in some games, there's pressure, you know, there's a bit of anticipation, there's a sort of a bit of fear for, am I going to be enough on the other side of this result? Am I going to be enough on the other side of this white line? And I remember, and this is why I say that there's the standards, there's the protocols, there's all the stuff that you need to reach, that you need to meet, and you need to work hard. But ultimately, you know, there's a lot of courage that comes into it. There's a lot of courage, and you know, to encourage someone, you have to encourage yourself, you know. So for any coaches, any people listening, you're going into a final, you're going into one of these big games that we have no idea of the outcome. You know, we have no idea of what's going to happen. We have no idea of if we're actually going to win. We've worked hard, you know, but we've got to this point. We can't control it now. You can't control it. You have to let people bring what they are. And I remember Brian McDermott, who's the ex-Royal Marine, an ex-boxer, is a rugby league player and then rugby league coach, most successful coach that in Super League history. And he always used to, you know, say to us before games, hold your nerve here. You're gonna have to surprise yourselves as much as you surprise the other team to win this thing. So he's not saying, you need to do this thing here is going to save you. You all need to cling to this. He's saying, you're going to have to bring who you are. You're going to fully bring who you are here. And I remember sat in the change rooms looking around at all these players, all controlling this version of what they think is going to enable them to come out on the other side of the
the white liners the best they are, dicing with fear and dicing with what they're able to do. And I remember going to the toilet. One of my things was going to the toilet. I used to go to the toilet 3 or 4 times before a game. It was just my stomach was just like, right, just emptying itself out. I went to the toilet, going past people looking, staring in the mirror, people throwing up in the toilet, and I just go to the toilet 10 minutes before we go out to sit down and just gather myself, in this cubicle. And I remember just sat there looking at the floor, and in these moments, mate, it's just like, talk about that train is taking off in a minute, and you need to be on it. There's no messing about. It's like you're being called out to go and play in front of sometimes 80,000 people. There's not much choice in it, There's a choice how you show up though. And I remember staring at the floor, this scrap of paper was like passed under the cubicle door in the toilet. I think, I can't even poo in peace here. Do you know what I mean? You're thinking, there's not much, subtlety with that. And I pick up this piece of paper and it just says on it, this is the best advice I've ever been given in my life. And I sometimes give myself this advice before I go and do a talk. It's just said on it, Stevie, you always run to the line first. You get involved in the action and then everything happens from there. You're a tough man, we'll say.
Yeah.
You'll go well today. Mate, and I picked up that piece of paper, read it, and I can break it down in terms of psychological safety for you, having a signal of someone that I care about respecting me for who I am. I can talk about courage, him being in courage, for me to feel courageous in that moment. But ultimately, I just thought, of course. It's all I can do. It's all I can control and fully assert myself doing it. I can accept that I might fail here. And I went out, mate, and I never broke as many defensive lines in my life, going through the line, and I was filled with this courage and spirit and drive and tenacity. And there was the standards, there was the how hard we trained, but also there was this openness, I'd say, to being driven by story, being driven by who we are, being, we've mentioned Rob Burrow at the start. Rob's always been encased in his own message that he's been given to the world, and living that story out as we go. And he had one of the most successful careers that you can have in rugby league. And I think we got that good. I think we did well with that, and it brings people together,
Yeah, I mean, so you go you got the note under the door, and from being quite nervous, and potentially, that's going to affect your game in a negative way. Just that one note flips a switch in your mind, and it's funny how everything from that is then positive, and it shows the power of how much of a mental game rugby is as well. Yeah.
Oh, mate, it's mostly emotional, mostly mental. It's like we all go to play rugby league, and it's all based on emotion when we're playing rugby league, when we're doing it when we're young, when we're doing it as kids and growing up, and it's all emotion. Do you know what I mean? And then when you get into the game, it can be void of it. Do you know what I mean? It can be barren of emotion. People can be misunderstanding of what it takes, the emotional intelligence, the empathy that's needed, the care, the safety, the ability to let people be who they are. It's like a banker getting into a job and not getting the money. Do you know what I mean? Rugby league players, you live from it, and if you're in a final, the game plans are good, they matter, and they might help you actually to think you've got something over on the other team, but that's all just to make you feel safer in it. That's all to make you feel like you've got more strength to add to it, you know, mentally and emotionally, and the more you care about the people next to you and what you're doing, the story you're telling, and the purpose you're driving towards is the biggest thing that's going to decide any final. When the fireworks go off and there's 80,000 people and you're fucking shitting yourself.
Well, that's it, but you know, you did all right, didn't you? In you know, like 3 Super League titles, a couple of Challenge Cups, League Leader Shield, etc., things like that. So, what were the standout moments in rugby for you? What were some of the highs?
Standout moments. 2012 was good. That was my first one. I was youngest sort of grand final winner at that time. You know, which was just mega. We met Wayne Rooney. Talk about Wayne Rooney. Met Wayne Rooney the night before, and I'm 18 years old, and he's giving me advice to, you know, make the most of every moment because they go by very, very quickly, and he's very, very right about that. And I remember the moment walking out from Old Trafford and the corner of that with the fireworks going off, and thinking, wow, this has happened quick, you know. I'm living the dream, you know, literally, when I should probably still have been dreaming it. So winning that and coming on for the last 20, 25 minutes was awesome. And I actually saw some clips of that the other day, and I was proud of myself, you know. I thought, fucking putting himself about here, the lad. You know, he's half the size of most of the players we're playing against. But yeah, I was proud of it. So 2012, and then I'd say 2015 was a good year because we obviously won all 3 trophies. It was a difficult end to the year because I missed that grand final.
Did you play in the Huddersfield game? The one
did my ACL.
Second? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I did my ACL, mate, 5 minutes before that. That happened. And I was in the change rooms. Oh. And I'm like, I just heard the crowd. I'm like, the loudest cheer I'd heard all night. I'm like, what's going on? Mate, everything went through my mind. 5 minutes, we was losing. I come back in from the change rooms. Into the change rooms from being outside. Well, losing at that point. I've just done my ACL. I'm thinking all sorts, mate. I'm thinking, fucking hell, what have I done to my knee here? I'm going to miss the grand final if we get to it. We're going to lose here. We're going to come fourth. We're going to make less money on the win bonuses. I'm thinking, what have I done to my knee? All sorts. And then that biggest cheer comes out and it's Hawley scoring in the last seconds. And then I come out and I'm like, it was a whirlpool, mate. I didn't know what to think anymore, you know.
It was a crazy finish.
It was the most incredible finish to a game I think we'll see ever, really.
So that's when you did the ACL then, that was what ruled you out for 12 months, was it? Was that the one?
Yeah, it was a big injury, yeah.
Obviously that then led to you kind of spiraling into a little bit of depression during that time out away from the game. Was that the first proper injury that you really sustained?
I'd had one before that, which was my shoulder. I'd dislocated my left shoulder. I was out for about 9 months with that. And I think the thing that I struggled with was I sort of got through the injury, and it was tough being injured and not great, but it was when I'd got back in 2014, and I sort of got back fit, but I couldn't put size on my shoulders, and I couldn't put much weight on because they were in pain a lot. And I wasn't playing to the potential of how I knew I could play. You know, like I was saying, I'm all in. I'm always all in. If I'm not all in, there's this pain that's deeper than anything. And I think that any driven individual, you know, it's painful when you're either injured or you're coming away from what that drive is.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It was really tough to deal with that, and just in and amongst it all, mate, it's like you're so much more than just a rugby player. Do you know what I mean? At the same time, and I wasn't able to live that out. I didn't feel like I was living that out, and I think that caused a lot of anxiety and stress. So yeah, that was a difficult sort of period. And then that 2015, it was when I felt like I'd come back. I put about 10, 12 kilograms on, you know, and I was wrestling, competing, challenging. I was like probably one of the first names on team sheet, making 50 tackles a game. I was like 21 years old. I was like living this life that I was like, bang, here we are, you know, we're on now. And that was one of the things. I was like, getting back to this point where I was like, you just need to work hard. That's all you need to do. You just need to work hard. You just need to put the size on. You just need to, no nonsense approach, and that'll see me through. And I got through that year and got like third or second. I think it was third, maybe player at year. So top 3 performers in that year. And then it got to that Huddersfield game where my ACL went. It was my nana's funeral that morning. And then I'm going, what's this game plan here that I've just been playing to? Because it's this has still happened. You know what I mean? And I think, when we're young, we want to grow up, so we're invulnerable. We have these experiences as a child, as a kid. We want to grow up and feel invulnerable, invincible. And many times I felt like that on a rugby field. But it got to that point where I was like, fuck, I'm not really, am I? I've just had this ACL, I had this shoulder injury. And that sort of knocked me, mate. And I think that, a few years after that, the 2017 grand final was like an encapsulation, really, of all of it, really. The vulnerability, the drive, the acceptance, the connection with teammates, the storytelling. It was like, for me, that encapsulates a lot of what had led up to that point, Yeah.
I know you said, obviously, like you're so much more than a rugby player, but a huge part of your identity is a rugby player. Stevie Ward, they plays for the Rhinos. That's probably the first thing that people say when they're describing you or talking about you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
or they said the next Kevin Sinfield.
Yeah,
it was up to them, but a lot of that identity is up to them. But as soon as I get lost in that and lose myself in whatever I'm supposed to be, you hand a lot of your power over,
Yeah. But then did that not affect, is that one of the reasons why you kind of slipped into that depression during that ACL, that 12 months out with the ACL, because all of a sudden you're not doing the thing that you identified the most strongly with?
Yeah. It was 2016, end of 2015 through 2016, I was out for 12 months. I was lost, mate. I was anxious. I was like, what am I doing? What do I do here? I can't be that thing. Can't do that thing,
But this is when you started Mentality?
Yeah.
So what exactly is that, or what was the thought process behind starting that?
Mentality is started as an organisation, mate, to help men be the best version of themselves, but considering mental health as well, simply put. And it grew into a podcast, it grew into apparel and a counselling service. And I guess with a brain injury, I've had to sort of like dial a lot of it down and just turn it into the speaking and the leadership stuff, based on time and effort, really. It was sort of saying, like, I was going through what I was going through emotionally, and seeing a lot of rugby players with prescription drugs, and I was like, is it just for the pain, that, or is it for something else? And I'm like, this isn't the gig. This isn't the gig that I wanted it to be or imagined to be. There's a lot more going on than winning, losing, and it being simple. There's a lot more in between the lines, and I think launching Mentality was to say, look, it was the first biggest act of vulnerability, and vulnerability, Brené Brown defined it as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And I remember launching Mentality much like I would run towards that line and allow for things to happen. Because I launched it with an article detailing my experience, detailing that game in 2015 where I'd lost my nana, I'd gone to the funeral, I'd played the league leaders game, I'd got injured, had everything ripped away from me, and how anxious I felt from all that experience, and from regaining it, trying to control it. And I launched that up at Millennium Magic Weekend in St James's Park, where all the teams go up, play a festival of rugby league, and put the article online, put it in the program, and press launch. And I was like, fuck it, let's see what happens from here, you know. And it's probably, you know, as we said about the speaking, it's unearthed this passion for me that's been there for a long time, you know.
Yeah. So do you think that had you suffered with like depression before that point, or was that the first time you'd really affected you?
I think that the moment when I was 19 with that shoulder injury, that was the first time, really.
Yeah. So you would say it's more caused by the circumstances you're in, as opposed to like you're already genetically predisposed to go down that road.
I don't know. I don't know how much we are predisposed to it. To be honest, I know that, you know, the stuff with antidepressants has sort of been unfounded, really, in terms of it being a chemical imbalance. I'm a believer in depression. You know, as Gabor Mate would say, is to depress something is to push something down. So that's all the emotions coming up. That's all the things that we feel in our chest, but we don't act on. We don't say. We don't protect ourselves. We don't do what is authentic to us. So that's, for me, that's what depression is, you know, and that's why, that's sort of what I felt. I didn't know what to do. I was literally doing what I could do to feel safe around the group and feel safe with my identity as a rugby player, but not fully saying what I wanted to say and doing what I wanted to do, you know.
Yeah. But you mean you came through that period?
Yeah.
And obviously you came back into the team and you know, was it 2017 you came back, and by 2019 you've been made captain. What was that like to be captain?
Yeah, it was good. It was a weird moment to be getting given captaincy. The same conversation I got given captaincy was when they told me that Robert had got motor neuron disease. I was like, fuck, you know, which is really big. But you know, captaincy is something that I'd worked for my whole life, really. And 2019 was, you know, a moment where I felt like, I guess all the stuff that we've spoken about already sort of culminated into a moment where I was leading the team through a series of meetings, really talking about values, talking about behaviours, talking about purpose, talking about all of these things that we'd let slip and not lived and gone to live authentically, really, as a team for a while, you know, since 2017. So, yeah, it was a proud moment, really, to be captain. And, I felt like it was probably time, you know.
Yeah. And you probably felt like, you know, I'm assuming you felt like it's kind of hitting your peak at this point, right? You know, you've matured as a player, as a man, you've been through some lows, you've come out the other side, you've now made captain and leader of the team. And then obviously 2 concussions in 2 weeks puts a premature end to your career. So obviously, for those that don't know, obviously the symptoms of concussion, you know, what is it you actually go through now on a daily basis?
So headache, mate. There's always headache, and pretty much always. And then there's like migraines that I trigger, that can be triggered, which is, you know, I don't know if anyone's had migraines, but it's fatigue. It's sensitive to light, sensitive to noise, and just it just wipes you out.
Yeah, I mean, people think they're getting migraines and they've got a headache. You know about it when you get a migraine, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was, but I actually went into partnership with Jordan Lilly. And we ran these boot camps.
I've seen that. I didn't know you were involved.
Yeah. So, and then it got to the point where we were doing, I think he'd just gone on loan to Bradford for the first time. So we were doing some in Stanley at the rugby ground there. We were doing some at Odsal. We were doing some at the York Acorn. I was running my own PT business, 2 or 3 gyms at the time, whatever it was at the time. I was stretched to the max. And I remember training, and in fact, no, I'd not been training. I was going to start training in the gym, and all of a sudden I started feeling a little tingle in my leg, and I thought, pins and needles. I've not been sat down. What's that about? Next thing, it spread all up my left side, all up my face. I'm thinking, fuck, I'm having
What's
a
happening?
stroke here.
Yeah,
I'm talking like this because my tongue was, I thought, shit, anyway, I got in the car and I drove to A&E, probably shouldn't have drove, but I went to A&E. And next thing you know, I'm violently throwing up and these migraines came on. It was an aura. It was called an aura before you get the migraine. And they were coming on probably every 4 days. It was all stress related. I was overworked. I was too tired and that. But I'd never experienced them before. In the end, I'm just giving the business to Jordan and saying, I'm out, mate, I can't keep doing this. And I had to drop down. And, as we were speaking about before, I've got this free time now, so all the gyms in Leeds, and I start to fill it with stuff. And I'm like, no, you've got to back off. You've got to have that downtime, right? But I mean, them migraines were no joke. They were, so like, and how often would they come on for you?
Oh mate, there's been different flavours over the years. I think probably 2 a week. Sort of come on, and then sort of in between it's like the headaches and just like this persistent headache, and then dizziness, mate, vertigo that I get, which you don't know if it's a migraine or this vestibular issue I've got, which is sort of regulates your balance and awareness and proprioception and stuff. So yeah, mate, difficult, and then all the I guess all the stuff that you can't do, exercise. I can't really exercise much now. I can go on walks and do like a really light bike. But I'll get there, mate. Do you know what I mean? I'll get there. I will get there. Wherever there is. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where there is. I'm here and I'm now, but I think. I
watched your documentary, and I thought it was a really good sort of insight in the fact that everything kind of seems fine on the outside. But it's those hidden things that are completely life changing.
Yeah, and it's hard, mate. And I was mentioned that drive before. Like that drive in me is like similar to you. You're saying this bit of space fill comes up, and you're like, I need to get into here and do something and create something. And I've been doing that for years, even after I've had a migraine. Still trying to run a business fully with mentality and. But also I've had to, that acceptance muscle has been, been doing the 1,000-pound deadlifting acceptance, I think, mate, recently, Well,
I was going to say, because like most athletes, when they transition from playing to retirement, they find that hard, even though they know that's coming. And for you to be cut off in your prime must have taken some real adjusting, not just the fact that you've had to stop playing, but you've now got to live with the effects of concussion as well.
Yeah, man, it's been really difficult. It's been really difficult. There's been a lot of grief, a lot of grief in there, and confusion, questioning for what I do, and I
was going to say like that the purpose. We all feel better and perform better when we've got some sort of purpose, right? And we're going off to training every week. You've got the game on a Friday. You know what you're doing. You've got a vision for where you want your career to go. That just to be ripped away. Even the physical side of it, you just mentioned there, you can go for a walk and a bit of a bike, but no more gym, no more contact, no more anything like that. So the physical sort of like stimulus taken away as well. Like you said, that dealing with that identity change now, it's a, well, when you say life changing, it's not to be taken lightly. It literally is life changing.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, everything falls away, in terms of the people you're connecting with every day, the sort of the way you live your life, the routine, the things you can do, things that you think you can do until you get fatigued and you get a migraine, and the things that I'm still weighing up in terms of how much load I go through, how much I can do in a day. Can I exercise in a day when I'm going out speaking? Can I go for a walk? If it's like all these things. It's like there's going to be some sort of stability and some sort of lay of the land to find, but also there's some part of it where I just have to be like, this just is what it is here. It just is what it is. I'm in pain, but the thing that I can work on the most is not to resist the pain. I can't. There's no way to go about it. The resistance and the judgment of it, and the sort of natural sort of feeling to not want the pain.
and things to be differently just makes things harder to deal with,
Yeah.
So,
but obviously, I mean, you must have obviously hit, you hit a low point when you did your ACL. You must have hit a really, really low point. I'd imagine that would have been the lowest point, once you realise that the career's over and stuff like that. But I don't know, when I asked the question, how do you pull yourself out of that and move forward? I know you have to, right? Because what's the alternative? But, what did you do to really kind of enable yourself to be able to move forward? Because it would have been, very easy to throw a towel in at times.
Oh yeah, it felt very easy to throw a towel in, mate. I think, when you watch a team play, and I was part of many Leeds teams where, we won trophies, and you mentioned those grand finals and stuff, but also, mate, there were many games we were absolutely shocking, absolutely shocking. And we'd play Wakefield away, or we'd play, say we play Wakefield away and we go over and we're meant to be winning, we're meant to beat this team. And we go out and we just flat as anything. There's no bite about it. There's no energy. There's no sort of like execution. And you're 20 points down and you go in at half time. And the only way you're going to win that game there is to lose the ego, the ego that's saying all sorts of things. We should have done this right. We should be doing this. We've not done this well enough. What if we do this game plan instead? All these things that's trying to find certainty and control that gets in the way. Needs to lose the ego. Needs to be vulnerable and say, I don't know what's going to happen here. I guess we just have to fucking give everything and have acceptance to say that, can I accept that we might lose this game? Can I accept that we're going to look stupid? Can I accept that we've just been embarrassed? Can I accept that I was terrible in that first half? And then all of a sudden, the other side, it's just like this resilience that you could never plan for. Do you know what I mean? And for me, so that's the way that I live life, mate. Now, that pain and that discomfort, that uncertainty that we all have in life, that's all around us. We can't guarantee anything, So I don't run away from it. I go to it now, just like running towards the line. So when I feel tension and discomfort in my body, instead of going off and drinking and distracting myself and doing all this stuff, I feel it. I meditate on it, and I go into it. And mate, on the other side of it, there's just that presence, which I feel was there with me all the way from being a young lad in the middle of those games where I was scared and nervous, and it just took over. That's for me. That's where I've had to go, because everything in me is wanted to not feel migraine, not feel pain, not feel discomfort, not have the game ripped away from me. And I just have to go, well, just like I would at half time, you say, fucking come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
And I suppose the years of being in that situation with the Rhinos has built that resilience that you've been able to kind of carry over a little bit. And
maybe, I don't know. I think it was already there.
Yeah.
I think it was already there. And something that I had with me that came out in moments at the Rhinos. I think these moments, I remember my dad saying to me, you're always going to have to do stuff you don't want to do. You go into rugby league world, that's replicated by 1,000. So that definitely helps, that toughness. But it's not a false grit. It's not a scared, I need to be tough here because I don't know what they're going to say or how I'm going to look. It's like everything's, if I look stupid, if I look this, if I don't make it here, it doesn't matter because I'm here for it.
Yeah.
That's like a real resilience to me.
Yeah,
it's not like that false one that people celebrate.
Yeah. And obviously, like you say, during the rugby days, you had your teammates around you, but going, once the career was over and you're trying to battle this, on your own, how important was that support network around you? Obviously, you got your missus, your family, your parents, ex-teammates, the Rhinos. I don't know, did you have that good support network around you during that time? My
missus, mate, it was just, I don't know where I'd be without my missus.
you know, I met Natalie back in 2016 when in and around launching Mentality, and she was a contemporary dancer. So funny enough, she had all this drive, all the standards, all the sort of the willpower to be the best, and she probably was the best, to be honest. She won't say that, but I think she was. And then, you know, she came from this world which was the art world, completely different to rugby, you know, but a lot of it is fucking letting go and being open and expressive, and you know, to meet her, it was like a collision of two worlds. So the longer our relationship went on, and this moment where I'm retiring from sport, I felt like I had this foundation that supported me away from just being Stevie the rugby player, you know, which was absolutely enormous. And you know, there's been that's been a massive factor for me. And then some teammates, some of my best mates, teammates that I played with, you know, Adam Cuthbertson, top lad, who's gone over to Australia now. I'm a bit gutted, but you know, it was good to have him around. And yeah, there's been some good people, mate, that's helped me.
Yeah,
definitely.
And obviously, you know, your case has brought a lot of awareness about the dangers of concussion within rugby league and, well, in sport in general, I suppose, and obviously like the effects of what it's like to live with it. So, what more could be done to make this a safer sport?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think a lot of what I support is the emotional intelligence stuff in sport, you know. I think the sport is a dangerous game, and I think it's a great game, and it's extremely testing, and people want to see they want to see competition, you know, and they want to see a physical game. I think the emotional intelligence, the way that we sort of would go about supporting people, supporting players, I think that there's so much work to be done with that, mate. And I felt like, you know, back in 2016, you know, like there's this part of it where we always speak about, you know, players overcoming adversity and getting back from injury to play, and it's like, well, that's great, but what happened for them to get to that point? You know, what support was there? You know, what have they learned about themselves and all this sort of stuff? And we never spoke about it. So it's like, well, let's speak about it. Let's understand what helps us to get there, to be a strong, resilient, tough person. So I think, you know, with the concussion stuff, I just think let's just look after each other, with it, and probably do less of the contact. That's probably what I'd say, to be honest. You know, I always think, you know, with the game, it's such an incredible game, and there's so much more that can be done with marketing of the game. You know, plays less games, big up the games, and the bigger games more. You know, that's probably what I'd say.
It's not even just rugby league, though, is it? You know, obviously the Union. There was a lad who played for York City. Danny Parslow. He had a big thing with concussion from heading the ball and stuff like this.
I remember that,
you know, American football, boxing, UFC, all these different sports. Was things like, you talk about like the training side of things to actually get people physically more ready for that. Was there a lot of like the neck training involved? I've seen these things with like these iron things that go on, they do the rotations and stuff like this. Was that a big part of your training?
Probably not. They were like little. I remember seeing rugby union players do it a lot. I'm thinking, what they're doing then? You know, what those boys doing? And obviously those boys didn't scrum all the time and stuff. So, you know, that's probably a big factor. But no, I think there is research with neck weights and neck strengthening that help prevent it more. So it probably needs to be more front and centre, to be honest, mate. You know, if we're getting serious about it, you know.
I see a lot of it in like American football and stuff like that, and they seem to be a little bit ahead of the times.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah. Well, they've had to be, haven't they? You know, the game they play as well. Sometimes I do watch that game like, whoa, it's reckless. Oh, mate, it's mad. So yeah, it's definitely sort of.
And that's the thing with rugby, I suppose. You don't want to take away those big hits, and that's part of the game as well, right? You know, but just reducing the amount of times that players have to go through it.
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say reduce that and look after the players that have had concussions, and understand that it's pretty serious, you know.
I mean, you've been on a total roller coaster, really, haven't you, with your career? You've had some incredible highs and gone right to the top, and then obviously some really, really low points as well. Do you ever regret picking up a rugby league ball now?
I don't know, mate. I don't live in regret, mate. I just sort of live every day and be thankful for what I do have, you know, and thankful for the experiences, thankful for what's led me here to speak to you today. It'd be interesting to see, you know, an experiment. What would happen if I didn't pick a rugby ball? I'd love to see that, you know, have a look, and just out of curiosity.
Sliding doors mode,
exactly,
which way your life goes. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Mate, I might have been on a BMX. I might have been playing football. You just don't know. So,
is it still a game that you watch much of then? Can you bring yourself to watch much of it? Or
I watched the Challenge Cup.
Yeah,
I watched Challenge Cup. I hadn't watched it properly for a while, to be honest. I've just sort of, I think with the health and managing that, and then other stuff that's going on and different places I am, I'm not fully in it, you know. So I didn't watch it much when I played it, to be honest.
Right, okay.
Just playing it enough was enough, you know, and then getting review on a Monday and thinking, oh my God, I'm in for it here was enough for me.
When you go back to like when you was a kid and you were absolutely in love with the game, is it a game that you'd want your kids to be involved in, or is it something you'd try to steer them in a different direction?
I don't know, mate, to be honest. It's a good question. I don't have kids now, so I can't give you
because obviously you've seen both sides. You've seen the incredible highs and all the great things that come with it, but you've obviously seen the darker side as well.
I'd sort of be led by them, you know. I don't think Natalie would be,
might be taken out of your hands.
Yeah, who knows, mate? I don't know. I'd have to make that
no, I didn't know if you had a thought.
I've not really thought about it, to be honest. But I'll have to do it at some point, hopefully. Yeah.
So obviously, let's look at some of the good things that have come out of a bad situation. Apart from obviously, you've raised a lot of awareness around concussion. You've had that time to build mentality, which has obviously gone on to help so many guys with the mental health and stuff like that. What are the goals for mentality going forward?
I think for mentality, mate, it's at the moment it's still got the counselling service going, and we've had the membership. I had to sort of pull that because of my health. I think, mate, what I'm focused on most is the speaking and then the leadership programs, which may or may not come through mentality. It depends. Okay. That's the main thing. Just share what I believe about performance and resilience and authenticity. And yeah, man, I love taking leaders on a journey, like getting them all in a room, whether it's an exco or not, and just getting them round and just going through, this conversation, going through all these lessons I've learned and getting them to sort of understand safety and trust, understand how you need that to feel like you can commit to something, commit to each other, and and fully flipping go for the wind, that's what excites me.
Yeah, but it's not just the speaking stuff you do the stuff with the camper van.
Oh yeah,
as well. I saw that, and obviously you've got the Wim Hof camps and that.
Wim Hof, Wim Hof. Yeah. Next one's a week on Saturday. Yeah, a week on Saturday actually. There it is, mate. We just get an amazing instructor over. I sort of host it, and he takes everyone through an amazing day, man. Breath work, cold exposure work, mate. People leave and they're like, wow. They're honestly, they're like,
I've seen some of the testimonials on your socials.
They just don't expect. They think, it's going to be a scary cold water thing, but like the full day is like people connecting. The breath work just blows people's heads off. People love it. So there's that's good, and holding events and holding space for people. And to be honest, mate, recovery is probably my main aim. Whenever that happens, and just experiencing life alongside it and seeing where I end up day to day.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because obviously now that you're not able to work out as much, that sort of breath work, meditation, cold water, that
helps me feel, probably gives me some physical, I don't know what you'd call it, movement and physical sort of like stimulation.
Yes, yeah.
You know, the cold water stuff's amazing. And the breath work, mate, is really, really interesting. And Wim Hof's just literally tip of the iceberg with what you can do with breath. You know, it's absolutely crazy what the science is now and the different techniques and how that's coming into performance.
It's become really popular as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
really popular,
massive. You know.
So how often do you do things like the ice bath? Is it a daily thing that you do, or is it?
Mate, do you know, I don't do it daily now. A lot of the stuff for me is probably what I'm doing. Obviously, the ice bath sort of activate my nervous system. A lot of the stuff now I'm doing is trying to deactivate it, regulate it, relax it and stuff. And, you know, being a rugby player, mate, and getting used to playing Friday and making 50 tackles on a Friday to then go into a video review and then do another 50 tackles in practice, you're always on. Do you know what I mean? I was always on and hyper vigilant. So for me, it's about trying to bring myself more down. So it's more meditation. It's more slow types of movement, you know, that sort of bring me down from this vigilant state, you know, and to try and put my body into a way that it's going to heal, you know.
Yeah. And obviously, like, your nutrition was obviously a big part during your playing days. Now that you can't be as active, are you still very strict on the nutrition? Because obviously you don't want to get out of shape and
pretty
still be
strict,
healthy.
Mate. I'm on a right flipping diet at the moment that's trying to bring down inflammation.
Yeah.
So I'm not on gluten. I'm not having dairy. It's pretty much white meat, fish. It's sort of it's like a mix of the Mediterranean, keto, vegan. You know, it's a bit like a mix of everything, really. But yeah, pretty strict with it to sort of see if it'll put me on a better path to heal and recovery. And so yeah, I guess so. Very different to eating 3 breakfasts and 2 lunches and everything I used to eat.
Put the size on.
Oh.
So you fan of supplements much? Do you take much, I suppose, for like, you know, cognitive function, brain function, brain health, stuff like that? Do you use much stuff like that?
I take something called Heights. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's basically omegas. It's krill oil. So it is vegan, but it's got the omega-3s, omega-6s, it's got blueberry antioxidants in it. It's pretty much the pill that covers most of the stuff that you need. Turmeric, I'll take that. Lion's mane, cordyceps mushrooms, they're both in tablets.
Some of that to help sleep as well?
Yeah, I take ashwagandha and stuff on the night as well, yeah.
Does what's happened to you, does that affect your sleep, or do you normally sleep pretty well?
I think sometimes the ashwagandha can help. I go through phases with sleep. Sometimes I'm good. This last week I've not been great, and obviously since Rob was not great. But, you know, a bit before that was pretty good. So it can go up and down, really, my sleep. But yeah, sometimes the ashwagandha, the 10% club, I get those from, which is pretty good. They do the lion's mane, cordyceps and ashwagandha as well on an evening, which is pretty decent actually for sleep.
Yeah. Some I use as well. That. So,
yeah.
So a couple that I'd like to finish off with, mate. We're going to wrap it up now. Biggest lesson you can take from your rugby career and transfer into everyday life?
I think, you know, that part of running towards the line is pretty much talking about the difference between fixed and growth mindset. You know, fixed mindset is it needs to be done now. I need to know the outcome. I need to have everything right. I need to get the straight A. I need to be getting things right. Whereas running towards the line is gathering data, it's learning, it's exploring. It's not having a defined outcome of what you need to get, but it's being more open. I think that's probably the biggest thing, was literally written down for me and passed to me while I was in toilet that I take through, mate, into life, and it's been the biggest thing over the last year, 2 years actually as well, for recovery as well.
Brilliant. And the final one, I know you said obviously you don't live in regret, and everything that has happened to you has led to where you're at today, which is, is great. But if you could go back to day one and do it all again, what would you do differently?
I'd tell people to fuck off a lot more.
There we go. We'll leave it at that one then. Brilliant, mate. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming down, mate, and obviously giving up your time to come here, mate. It's inspirational the way that you've overcome adversity multiple times through your career and obviously post-career. It's great to see obviously you're so passionate and vocal about men's mental health and really standing up and helping a lot of guys through your own experiences and stuff like that. So, really appreciate it, mate. All the best going forward.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks so much, buddy.
Cheers, bud.
Cheers,
thanks for having me, man.
Thank you,
Cheers,
mate. Thanks so much for listening. Please remember to like, share and subscribe. And if you need any more information on the Mansformation programme, just hit the link below.